And so today, as we are moving forward, we want to assist you in letting yourselves off the hook a little bit. We want to show you how to bridge the emotion that you're feeling. And we want you, instead of standing in judgment of the negative emotion that you are standing in the middle of, beating up on yourself because you know you should not be feeling it. Instead, we want you to bless the emotion and the indicator that it is, and stop beating up on yourself about where you are, and just start moving from where you are more in the direction of where you want to be. As Jerry and Esther are traveling from Phoenix to San Diego, and they get about halfway to Yuma, they don't stop in Yuma and begin to cry because they're not in San Diego. And they don't beat up on each other. You fool, how could you possibly be in Yuma? You know that we want to be in San Diego. What are you doing in Yuma? Instead you say, we are in Yuma, but we are on our way to San Diego. And where we are is where we are, and where we are is just fine. And we will not have a meltdown because we are in Yuma. Instead, we will keep our eye on San Diego. And if we keep our eye on San Diego, we will be in San Diego. The same thing is true of you no matter where you are emotionally. Don't worry about where you are, just get your eye on where you want to be. Jerry has noticed as he watched Esther drive, whether it is the monster bus or the smaller cars, that she tends to go wherever she looks. So he has become a little hesitant about saying, oh, look over there. He just enjoys the countryside silently. And you all tend to go where you are looking. In other words, if you are looking back, you are going back. If you are looking forward, you are looking forward. If you are looking towards something you want, you are moving towards something you want. If you are looking toward things you are praising, then your life is becoming more full of those things. If you are looking toward things you are criticizing, then your life is becoming more of those things. It just has to be that way because you are emitting a vibration, and the vibration equals your point of attraction, and law of attraction must match you up. It can be no other way. So as you are realizing that you are always moving somewhere, and you begin saying deliberately, I'm moving where I'm looking, I'm moving where I'm speaking, I'm moving where I'm thinking, so I'm going to think and speak and talk and look and imagine and remember about things where I really want to go. As soon as you make that decision, you begin improving the way your life unfolds. It happens instantaneously. It's really a lot of fun to recognize that you are the creator of your own experience. And it is so much fun when you realize that you have an indicator that you are born with that lets you know in every moment how you're doing. How you're doing in relationship to your own desires. Your indicator is not about what anybody else wants for you. Your indicator is only about your connection with who you really are. It is the measurement between the vibration that is really you and the vibration of your intentions and the vibration of your habitual habit of thought. Your emotions are that gauge between where you want to be and who you really are and where you are in the moment. And if you pay attention to the way you feel, you always know what your vibrational content is. We never see you in your automobile looking at your empty gas gauge and condemning it for being empty. You don't take a hammer and just beat it out of the dashboard. You foolish thing, you're on empty. Instead, you respond to the indicator and you put some more fuel in. Your emotions are a similar indicator. When you are on empty, you feel negative emotion. Can never empty out all the way, but you can pinch it off pretty good. But that negative emotion is low on source energy. And when you start praising and appreciating and looking for reasons to feel good, then you start filling your tank up again. In other words, we've talked about your valve. We've talked about being tuned in, turned on, tapped in. We talk about being connected to source energy. We talk about you being an extension to source energy. We talk about your cork floating. We talk about raising vibration. We've offered just about every analogy that is imaginable to try to help you to realize that you have control about how much of your source energy that you are allowing or disallowing, allowing or resisting in any moment. But when we talk about this gas gauge, we really want you to get the sense of it, that it is really silly for you to beat up on yourself when you have negative emotion. Instead say, bless this gauge that is letting me know that I've been mucking around in some habit of thought that I inherited from my mother. I didn't realize how out of proportion it is to who I really am, or how detrimental to my experience it really is. It's something that the television purports day after day, week after week, year after year. I sort of absorbed it, didn't realize until now, because my indicator lets me know that this thought is not a match to what I want. I cannot think about thriving and worry about all of that stuff at the same time, you see. So, we notice sometimes that when you are in a strong place of negative emotion, let us start in another place. Those of you who've been listening to us for a while have noticed that we are not great proponents of stirring up what's wrong. Sometimes people have sat in the chair and they want to go on and on about how bad things are, or even just give us a basis of understanding of why they're feeling so bad, or even give us a basis of understanding of where they are. And you've heard us cut them off abruptly sometimes, teasing them, encouraging them not to go to that negative place, because the longer you poke around at what you do not want, the longer you hold yourself in that place. And so we have been very strong proponents of reaching for the best thought that you can find. But we notice that as more and more of you are teachers of deliberate creating, that when you see a friend, or even when you find yourself in strong negative emotion, that sometimes you try to jump too hard, too far over into the positive emotion. And we're wanting you to realize that when you try to jump too far, you can't hook on at all. And so what sometimes happens is you go from your place of very strong negative emotions, such as depression or grief, that strong negative emotion, the most suffocating kind, where you feel truly defeated or betrayed. And in that strong negative emotion, even though you know that you want joy, even though you know you want to feel love, even though you would like to reach for appreciation, you don't have access to even a little piece to hook onto. And so then you go from feeling this strong depression to anger, to depression, to anger, to depression, to anger, and you can't seem to break out of that cycle. So what we're wanting to help you to realize here as we are moving through our time together is that your gas gauge doesn't fill up all at once either. You don't go from empty to full instantaneously, unless you go to the truck stop where it really puts it in fast, but not that fast even there. You are incrementally refilling your tank, and you are incrementally adjusting your vibration. So let's say that you're in this place of very strong negative emotion, and let's call it grief, that kind of emotion where you feel like you can't even get a breath of air. And when we say to you, reach for the best feeling thought that you can find, you don't have access to that joy that your mate or your friend would like you to come to. The best you might be able to do is rage. And the thing that we'd like you to focus on here with us for just a moment today is that the rage that you feel is an improved feeling. But only you know it. Somebody else who's nowhere near depression or nowhere near rage could easily look at you and say, that's a very inappropriate emotion that you're holding. Don't you know that you're the creator of your own experience? Don't you know that that rage will net you nothing good? And we say, they don't know. They don't know that you have improved the way you feel by finding the improved emotion of rage. Now, we're not encouraging you to stay stuck in that rage, but we're encouraging you to say, I feel better, because now at least you can breathe again. And it is an improved feeling. And when you think about it, you'd rather be mad than in that horrible place you just were. And so what we're encouraging you to do is to seek your own counsel only for a little while and take the improved feeling of rage and pat yourself on the back and say, I feel better, and then you're off and running. Because if you have shown yourself consciously that you can go from that suffocating grief to anger, now you know that you can move from anger to something less uncomfortable too. And you don't have to do it all at once. If you don't stop and pat yourself on the back and acknowledge your personal control, then you'll slip right back into that depression again. And that's what we see happening with so many who are being counseled by people who really want to get them out of the rage. And the reason society doesn't want you to be angry is because society is afraid that you will act out against them. In other words, most of you, if you are watching someone on the outside, find them easier to deal with when they are depressed than when they are angry. Because their depression is not overtly thrust at you. And so as a society, you have become proponents of encouraging people to go into the suffocating depression rather than coming out into the light of anger, because their anger, frankly, frightens you. But as the depressed one that we are speaking to now, we want to say to you, they don't know. They don't know that you have improved your experience, and you've got to stop listening to them. You've got to stop caring what anybody else thinks about the way you feel, because they can't possibly begin to measure the way you feel. They don't know. Do you know that your emotions are your gauge between where you want to be, not where somebody else wants you to be, where you want to be and where you are. That's what your emotions are. They don't know. Somebody who does not give a rip about something cannot understand your depression when you want it and can't seem to find a way to make it happen. They're standing back saying to you, I don't know why you're so bothered about that, and we want you to know they don't know. They cannot possibly understand the emotions that you are feeling. Only you can. And you can't understand the emotion that anybody else is feeling. Only they can. Only the individual who is feeling, because it is an individual desire versus belief ratio. Jerry and Esther have a friend who just came back from Haiti. He went on a mission with his church for a couple of weeks to help build an orphanage. And he came back expressing his concern about the poverty there, and has decided that he is going to adopt a baby from there, hoping that he can bring the baby back, teach this child a better way of life, so that hopefully this child can go back there and raise the standards there. And as Esther is listening to it, while she understands his reasoning, and she would like everyone on the planet to have a better standard of living, she began to feel discomfort about someone going from one society into another society and trying to change the way they desire. Because Esther is beginning to understand that if you can introduce desires that are far apart from a country's or an individual's ability to achieve them, you're going to distort the ratio between their desire and their belief. In other words, everyone feels around that. So Esther said to her friend, well, what did you see there? What was your experience with the people? And he talked about the lack of resources. He talked about how little they live on. He talked about the lack of electricity and the lack of the things that you are accustomed to in this continent. And then Esther said, but what I really want to know is, how did you find them in terms of the way they seem to feel? And he said, oh, they're happy. Oh, they're happy. And Esther wanted to say, then leave them alone. In other words, why do we need to superimpose our desires over them and then put them in that place of discomfort when they want something that their society has not yet caught up with? And so the same thing is true of every individual that you interact with. While your contrasting experience do inspire each other to higher standards of desire, and we are saying that that is a good thing, really. If you get too out of balance between what you want and what you believe you can achieve, then it goes from happiness to discord. It goes from allowing well-being to disallowing well-being. And what we're really wanting to impart to you here is that it is your job to keep your balance, your ratio in balance, and it is not your work to keep anybody else's in balance, and it is not your work to try to adjust yourself to anybody else's standard. Nobody knows but you.